Get out!
Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a Death Star game. This is post-nerf Death Star, and as you can see, I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but I'm not going with all Hesh. Circon and phj still do when they play theirs, but I've gone for a more mixed setup. Now, of course, you've got a long reload on the Death Star, and while certain ammo is more useful in certain situations, often you just don't have the time to reload to get the right ammo type for the right target. So sometimes you just have to go with what you've got. So, bearing that in mind, I am starting off with a Hesh shell because Hesh is still the all-rounder shell. It's still the most useful shell in pretty much most situations, because even if you don't pen with it, you're still going to do some damage. And yes, okay, that's also true with the HE, but if you've got a better chance of penning with Hesh, obviously. The downside of AP, although it's got very good penetration, is that this gun has seriously lackluster accuracy. It's 0.4, and the number of times where I've screwed myself because I fired an AP shell at something and it's either it's bounced off or it's gone in tracks or whatever, that can really hurt you, because you've then got that long reload and an angry tank in front of you that knows that you're reloading, so you have to kind of make the shots count. And I have some moments of derp of my own in this battle, but this is more about what the enemy team does this battle. And it's really why you shouldn't do what the enemy team does. But you know, you'll see when the full extent of the derpery becomes apparent. Now this is with Circon and actually Snooze. If you've been watching the live stream at all recently, you'll know who Snooze is. He's one of the guys that Circon met at Gamescom, along with Mr. Conway and Thayer. And he is now a circling himself. I think I've got that right. I know he met Mr. Conway. I think he met both of them at Gamescom. I might be horribly wrong there. I don't know. I just had a sudden stabbing moment of doubt, as occasionally happens, you know, all the time. But, yeah, we have gone to the usual kind of position, but nobody's appeared, so we're pushing up. And as Snooze himself said, that he had a sudden moment of, oh my god, there's a waffle on my flank, but not anymore. Not anymore. Basically, the waffle and the Death Star are kind of the perfect counterpoint to each other, because, oh, yeah, yeah, there's a moment of minor derp there with that driving. Because, obviously, the waffle has to be very afraid even of the Death Star. But if you fire a miss, or you roll low, or whatever, with the Death Star against the waffle can then just sit there and clip you, and you really can't do anything about it. Now, look at the other side. Yeah, that was not a fully aimed shot, but I knew I didn't have time to aim it. Take a hit from the T-54, but I'm not too worried about that. They basically, the enemy team, a couple of them, camped along the J and K lines, and the rest all just went up the other side of the tracks. And they seem determined to cap us out, even though that means they're going to have a really terrible score. Unfortunately, the way that we've run into some defending tanks, and that's a nice hit into that STB. Pity it didn't roll a bit higher, otherwise I could have just killed him with AP, but oh well. We are actually down on tanks as well. Now it's only 6-8, but still, that's a disadvantage in numbers that could really hurt us. Now, our Batchat is making a hero run. He's going to get there and hopefully decap, because if he doesn't, we're a bit stuffed. The thing about trying to cap on Ensk as well is that, yeah, I'm going to have to waste a shell at some enemy, but he's not looking my way, so there we go. And the Batchat has actually decapped, and I think somebody else, possibly Circon shooting along the tracks, has decapped as well. And that's the thing about Ensk, because it's such a small map, trying to cap like that, you can just shoot people along the tracks or whatever. Now, this is a moment of derp, a moment where I really derp, because I go forward here, and apart from not being able to drive properly, and yeah, I don't know why I just kind of panic fired, but I shouldn't even really be here in this position. This is not a smart place to be. Taking fire from 1390, this is bad, and I'm still reloading. Used my repair kit already, but the 1390, clearly that was his last 2 shells, so he backs off. And I just spot the WZ just in time to try and one snooze, but it's too late, and this WZ's now going to shoot me instead. Now, we are sort of between a rock and a hard place. We've stopped them from capping, but that WZ's still down there, and the 50B's gone back as well. And I'm thinking, okay, actually, 50B, that could be a problem. He's not just gonna do what I think he's gonna do, is he? No, yes, he is. Bye-bye 50B. Yeah, he knew there was a Death Star here, and he just kind of went and sat right where I could shoot him, which is not a good plan on his part, I must say. So that may have swung the match in our favour, because Zircon, you can tell he's not full health, but I don't know, it could have been a close fight, because it would have been 2 versus 1, Zircon versus the WZ and the 50B, and there's still 1390 around somewhere as well, but Zircon reckons that might have saved the match, that shot. And I think we still might have won, but it would have been trickier. And you can see that there's the 1390 as well. So back to AP. Don't quite reload in time for the WZ, but 1390 is quite obligingly just right in front of my gun, so I'm going to shoot him instead. And there we go. That's the bulk of the match over at this point. The 1390 is down, the WZ is trying to beat a retreat, but he's never going to make it. And I positioned myself to go and maybe get a shot at artillery. We've basically won this, but my word, it was close. Considering what the enemy team did, that massive rush up the east flank of the map, which doesn't usually, you know, it usually does not get anywhere this close to working, and in this situation it kind of did almost, but for a couple of players on our team, that bat chat included, you know, we could have potentially lost this to a cap. And the thing with battles like this is, you know, you might try that strategy in a tank company battle where it's more the win that you're going for in TCs, but in a battle like this, you know, if they'd won when we still had, you know, 8 tanks left on our team or whatever, they would have pretty much all had really terrible XP, and yet that's what they were trying for, so I don't know. It wasn't a good strategy, but it nearly worked anyway. So Zircon puts one in the artillery, and the T-54 is very sneaky. He knows Zircon's unlikely to one-shot the artillery, so he waits until Zircon fires once, then pulls the trigger. So, you know, he gets that final kill instead of Zircon. But, yeah, overall, that was just a weird match. It was really strange. And you don't often see matches like that on Ensk. It tends to go... Ensk tends to work really in more or less the same fashion most times you play it, and the occasions when it doesn't work like that are fairly few and far between, and this is one of them. So yeah, I had a couple of good shots in there. I actually hit most of the things I was aiming at. This is not a good gun for snapshots, and there were a couple where I was forced to make snapshots, but even that 50B, that was not quite fully aimed, and with 0.4 accuracy that still could have missed. But very fortunately for me, it hit, and not only did it hit his turret, and it gave me enough of a damage roll to actually kill the guy. And the waffle as well, you know, if I'd missed the waffle, again, that could have been very, very painful. But fortunately for me, somebody actually shot him just before I shot him, so I didn't have to roll that high. I did have one occasion with the Death Star where I came face to face with a waffle, and I can't remember if I had Hesh or HE, but I fired it and it rolled like 1400. And the guy was left with less than 100 hit points and proceeded to just clip me. So I was just, you know, one of those occasions when RNGesus just went, nope, and I died as a result. But fortunately, there was nothing like that in this case. And I actually mixed it up a bit with the ammo as well, and because I didn't use purely Hesh ammo, I didn't make credits, but I lost less than 1,000 credits with premium. Without premium, I would have lost a bit more. It would have been more like minus 12,000. But for a tier 10, minus 12,000, that's really nothing. That's, you know, that's a single tier 8 premium tank game, and those credits are made up. If we look at the team list, Zircon came out first, 5.7k damage, 1k base XP. The T-54 did well for himself. Not quite as much damage, in fact less than half that damage, but because he was a tier 9 in a tier 10 battle and damaging tier 10 targets, he actually came not that far behind Zircon on the score list. I came third, Snooze came fourth, and a bit of a drop off after that. The IS-7 did fairly well, and then the rest of the team, I don't know, I think a lot of our team got caught rather on the hop with what the enemy team did, frankly. But as we can see from the enemy team, it's not like they were doing massive amounts of damage, especially. It's just, there were a couple of players with 3k plus damage, 2k plus damage, but it was still not a good strategy. You know, even a derpy strategy can occasionally work, but that doesn't make it good. That just makes them lucky, basically. It's sometimes said, and I think it's also sometimes said by Jingles, that you know, if it's a bad plan and it works, then it's not a bad plan. Well, actually, no. I tend to disagree with statements like that. I tend to be of the mind that it's still a bad plan. It's just that you got really lucky that your opponents were not quite good enough. And in this case, you know, if our platoon hadn't been on this team, their strategy might have worked. Maybe. As it was, it came very close to working, but we just managed to pull it back. And I had some pretty important shots in there with the Death Star as well, so yeah. So it's, I don't know, it's derpy. It's no less derpy than it ever was, but I get results like this more often where I do 4,000, 5,000 damage than in ye olden days when people could roll around doing, you know, 8,000, 9,000 damage. I'm sure that's still possible, but it takes a bit more skill than I've got, probably. It takes a bit more luck, and it takes a bit more, what am I trying to say here? You got to get exactly the right circumstances for it to happen. So, if you enjoyed this replay, this tale of derpitude, you can hit the like button, you can leave me comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.